Two live streams for the price of one. Not only did you get Marcus about an hour ago for a fantastic Put Me in Coach session that you can find on all our social media channels, but I have the pleasure of introducing two fantastic people today that have joined me to talk all the reasons, 5 of them specifically, to love MasteryConnect this fall. I am joined by James Seaman, who's a regional director of MasteryConnect, and Noel Gomez, the product marketing manager of K-12 Assessments. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to see all of the things that you have. I'm going to play background Eddie today, handle all of the comments, the questions, concerns, anything that comes through on our chat side, and then posting all the links for all the resources that they're going to share today. So super excited for you guys to get started. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. We are definitely excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, so we are going to cover 5 reasons to love MasteryConnect even more this fall, because we know that you already love MasteryConnect. I mean, who doesn't, right? So, Noel, I think maybe the first thing we want to do is just kind of reinforce for folks who are familiar with MasteryConnect, but also introduce folks who are not, kind of what's behind the reasons we do what we do. We're going to dive into MasteryConnect and share some of our enhanced features that have been released for the coming school year that I think you're really going to enjoy. But you always want to keep in mind, why are we doing this? What is the why at MasteryConnect? And for us, the emphasis on everything we do is helping educators not be data collectors, but be data users. We know that everyone in the classroom, and Noel, you know this from your days as teacher, principal, district admin, right?
Yeah.
Collecting tons of data.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
I think in education, we're really, really good at collecting lots of data. We have tons of data points on students and things like that. But ultimately, what the main goal of all of this is to really shift that focus from collecting that data to really, truly using that data and really only collecting the data that we're actually going to utilize for the benefit of students.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we really believe that if you're going to solicit data from students, at some level you have a moral obligation to use that data to help the students, to help them learn, to make their lives better, and also to help you as a teacher or as a school or district leader really grow in your practice. And the question sometimes is, well, that's great, I'm collecting data. How do I go from being a data collector to a data user? It's really these 3 steps that we outline here on the right in the ITS model. Identifying levels of understanding, identifying what your students know and what they don't know. What level of understanding and knowledge do they have relative to whatever those skills, standards, learning targets are in your class? And then using that information to do 2 things. 1, target those students for the appropriate level of intervention, whether it is some level of remediation or a little bit of help. Maybe it's acceleration. The student has shown you based on that information that they're ready to move on. But also self-evaluating. The S in the ITS model is teachers, leaders, administrators using that data to reflect on their instructional practice. What am I doing well? Where do I need to improve? How can I grow in the tier 1 instruction in my classroom? What can we do as a grade level team, a school team, a district team to really grow and improve in our craft? So everything we do in MasteryConnect really is seen through this lens, not collecting data, but using data through identifying student levels of understanding, targeting students for intervention, and self-evaluating. And as we dive into some of the product improvements, Noel, maybe talk us through a little bit about how we then craft the product in order to meet those sort of overarching goals that I was talking about. It's the things you're building are not random.
Yeah. So first of all, I think one of the things about the product side of MasteryConnect that's really important is that we're always looking to talk to educators and really find out what the needs are and what we can do to make the product even more successful in the classrooms of teachers across this country and internationally. But the biggest thing we're always trying to do is really fill the gaps of teacher time and really making things simpler for teachers rather than making things more complex, because we know that there's a couple of finite things in education. One of them is time. And so ultimately, we're always trying to simplify the process for teachers and make that easier. And so that's a big piece of it, but also just listening to our customers about what will make MasteryConnect even better. So for this particular release of products, release of features, which we're super excited about, the ultimate goal was kind of these 4 pieces, really for being able to, again, save teachers time with integration and streamlined workflows, allow for even easier access to data, because we know if you have to wait for the data or if the data is cumbersome, the likelihood that you're actually going to move from collecting the data to actually using the data, is not very likely. So really allowing for that easy access. And then from the student side, because ultimately everything we do at MasteryConnect is really about influencing student achievement. And so making that integrated experience for students really easy and making that workflow simple for them. And then just, allowing you to be able to see very specifically what your students know and don't know, so that you can use that data to then provide them with that appropriate level of intervention, whether that be, like James said before, whether that be remediation, whether that be more of enrichment and or acceleration. So I really feel like those are kind of our key pieces in how we determine our product roadmap. And these 5 that we're going to share with you today really hit these 4 areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about the enhanced tracker design. Now, if you're not familiar with MasteryConnect, we're going to share the tracker. It's going to melt your face off. If you're already using the tracker, you're going to see the way we've enhanced and improved it. You're going to love it. Okay. Within that, expanded tools and accommodations to make the assessment of students easier and more equitable, giving students better access. Some updates to our item analysis report, which is a key element of our reporting and really using data. The document uploader, that's going to really hone in on the individual student report and some tools you can do there. And then finally, I want to save this for last, and we spent quite a bit of time on this, talking about Canvas MasteryConnect integration. If you're not a Canvas user, why aren't you? You should be using Canvas MasteryConnect. MasteryConnect does operate as a standalone platform, but really the power of both Canvas and MasteryConnect are enhanced when you use the two of them together. So really excited to talk about the improved MasteryConnect and Canvas integration. So let's go through these. Let's talk about these. I'm going to start here. And you're seeing MasteryConnect inside of my Canvas account. Again, for Canvas users, you can access MasteryConnect right from your global navigation. And as a classroom teacher, this is a view into your tracker. This gives you insight into what your students know and don't know relative to standards. For those who aren't familiar with MasteryConnect, all of the standard sets, every state and national set, not just for core content areas, but electives as well, pre-baked into MasteryConnect. There's over 1 million standards available. You can even create and customize your own. The point is that if you have something that you need students to learn and you want to identify and say, hey, are they learning this? Are they getting it? This is the place to track it right here in MasteryConnect. Clear, clean, stoplight colors. I'm using 3 levels here. There are definitely districts that use MasteryConnect on a 4-point scale. But for those who are familiar with the tracker, you're like, well, what is that funny little blue button here? Where did it go? And we used to cram really all of the options that you can do in your tracker into this button up here. And the design now, I think, is a little bit cleaner and allows you to access these tools in a way that makes a lot more sense. So when you're viewing your tracker here, this icon is for sorting and organizing your students. When you're viewing the data within the tracker, if you want to filter and sort that by any of the demographic categories that are coming over from your student information system, another exciting piece about that is that you can actually filter your tracker by section. So those who are familiar with MasteryConnect know that if you're at the secondary level, at least, you got to create a tracker for first period, a tracker for second period, a tracker for third period. No longer. If you are teaching one course, you can have that entire course within a single tracker and then filter that view by the specific hour or class period or section that you want to view. For Canvas users, that's really exciting. It's kind of a preview of when we're going to get into this Canvas MasteryConnect integration. The use of cross-listing means you don't have to go and add this assessment to all of your different sections. Everything is done here in one tracker, and all the action you need to do for identifying specific sections or group of students can be seen right here. So that's what that button is for. This button right here, the tracker button, really is not for filtering the students, but for filtering the standards. we know that you're probably using some sort of a pacing guide, some sort of planning, a curriculum map. And so you don't necessarily want your standards just kind of spit out in the same order that the Common Core has them or the state has them listed. You want to be able to really customize your standards into units, quarters, chapters, themes, whatever pacing guide you and your PLC team or your district is using. For district leaders who might be watching this, you can drop your pacing guide right into MasteryConnect, and this level of organization will automatically appear for teachers in their tracker, so they can be following kind of a common pacing guide.
One other thing, James, let me just interrupt for 1 second. One other thing that's really important in there too is that oftentimes districts and or classroom teachers will like to identify those essential standards. And those in MasteryConnect are called power standards. And you can identify those individually, and you can see at the top, they have kind of that blue P up there at the top, kind of identifying those. And you can filter your tracker just to look at those essential standards in your curriculum as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. And what becomes important too there is the view that you want to share maybe of those power or essential standards with students and parents. So I'm going to hop over this, but I'm going to come back to this button in a minute and talk about in the settings of your tracker. When you've got an individual student or parent who is viewing this data, you may not want them to see all of this sort of unassessed data that's over here that you haven't gotten to yet. And so you have the ability within your tracker to decide and filter what is going to be seen and shared to parents and to students. Do you want to show unassessed standards? Do you want to show them only the power and the essential standards? For students, and parents, we always promote transparency, wanting to be able to understand how they did on an assessment and why. But there are compelling reasons not to, at all times, allow students to see the answer key, their responses. You don't necessarily want a student in first period texting the answers to a kid in third period. So you control all of that. Okay. The data can be as transparent as you want it to, but you can control and decide. You can even pull in data from other trackers and former students. Noelle, what's the point of that? Why would I want to see data from another tracker in my own tracker?
Yeah, so great piece of that is oftentimes there are standards that kind of cross over. And there's always a standard in language arts that is asking this is just an example, but asking students to be able to read grade level, curriculum materials and so forth, and understand vocabulary that are content specific. And that's really hard to just assess in a language arts class. So being able to potentially see how students are doing based upon that standard from other classes, or also just looking at, okay, how did the students potentially do in math last year? And how is that then going to impact how they're going to potentially do in my class this year? And do I need to start somewhere different than my normal starting point for particular standards and whatnot? So really having access to any data that is in MasteryConnect from previous years or from other classes is super helpful to truly paint the full picture of a student's success.
Yeah, it's awesome. And what you would do there is simply use the more option to add those additional standards you want to see. So in the example, I'll use the second example Noelle's talking about. I've got 6th grade math students here, rising 6th graders. Maybe I've been doing this for a dozen years, and I'm sort of used to my students coming to me at a certain level. A lot of lost learning opportunities because of COVID. Maybe I want to sort of be able to gauge and see and give a quick assessment to understand, where my students actually are on the key standards from the year before. I can easily add any standard from any set right to my tracker. And if that student already has data from the previous year, it will pull their data in as well. If not, I could give them a quick diagnostic. So some really great options to utilize in that tracker, some improved options, and then just the improved layout and experience of having those tools right here. Now, the one that I skipped over is the tools and accommodations feature. And this allows you to make a variety of tools and accommodations available for students in taking assessments. Now, making these available at the tracker level means you could make one of these or multiple of these tools available for every assessment in your tracker. If you're saying, hey, every time my students take an assessment, I want them to have a notepad to do scratch work and all that. I don't have to add it every time. Right? Do it right here at the tracker level. Keeping in mind, you can also add these for individual assessments if you need to as well. From Desmos calculators to highlighting and sticky notes and line readers, a lot of great tools and accommodations that ultimately show up for students here. They've got their menu bar over here, so they can access the various tools that the teacher has made available for that particular assessment, including the text-to-speech option, which is right here, that actually gets turned on for the individual student who has that accommodation by simply editing the student. So, Noelle, those tools and accommodations, I mean, you wore a lot of hats. I was a classroom teacher, but you did a lot of different roles beyond just teaching in your experience in schools and districts. Talk us through kind of the importance of students having access to these kinds of tools and accommodations when they're taking assessments.
Yeah, I apologize. I think my dog might be greeting the Amazon delivery driver currently. So, but yeah, the tools and accommodations are really meant, and the ones that we developed here are really meant to mimic what students are going to see and have available to them on your state testing and more high stakes types of testing. So being able to practice using these types of tools from a formative assessment standpoint really makes a huge difference for students. So they're not tripped up kind of by the tools of an assessment, but instead can really truly show their knowledge based upon the standards. So there's tools like this one that James is showing right now that are really helpful for students that maybe have some tracking issues, anything like that. And then additionally, just having the ability to like have strike through to be able to choose ones that they want to potentially say, okay, I know it's not that one, and I know it's not that one, and be able to eliminate some of those answer choices. So ultimately, our product team developed this suite of tools really for the purposes of kind of matching what's available on other types of testing that students will see.
Yeah, thanks, Noelle. I think it's important too, that first point you mentioned about, if MasteryConnect is really about helping us understand what students know and don't know so we can provide the right level of intervention. If a student has a read aloud accommodation and they have to solve a math problem that's a story problem, you want to understand whether the issue is that they can or can't do the math, or is it the reading piece? And so if they have the reading accommodation, great, turn on that text to speech, that can be read aloud to them, and then you can identify, okay, the reason they're struggling is because they actually don't know the math. So it really helps us get down again to what do students know and what do they not know, and how can we use this data. In terms of using data, there's a variety of reports in MasteryConnect. The tracker itself here, I think, in a lot of ways being the most compelling. But when you drill into a specific standard or specific assessment, you've got a variety of reports that can help you as well. One of these I want to focus on is the item analysis. But even before that, when you drill into an individual standard, you have the ability in MasteryConnect to instantly sort by mastery. Now, for those who are familiar, you're like, where's that blue drop-down menu? That was sort of floating out here and disassociated from the actual data. Now it makes a lot more sense. You just go to that column of data and say, for this standard 6RP1, I want to sort by mastery. It's right there. And for those who are not familiar, you can see the power of this. In that same tier 1 environment where I taught the skill and assessed the skill, I now have the ability to identify and see where my students are, so I can use the remaining time in this class period with these students to provide the right levels of intervention. And if I'm using Canvas, this is where I can use mastery paths to have these students getting some remedial practice, these students doing some pre-reading on the next standard, while I then spend a little bit of time with this group. And that's where I want to dive into the item analysis. So for those who aren't familiar, the ability to see question by question exactly where students are struggling. For those who are familiar, some of the enhanced features, the ability to see the standard for each question and access it there, the question type, the actual answer choice itself showing up here, the ability to print this view as well if you need to do that, to bring into your PLC meeting, whatever the case is. But again, reviewing the ability to actually see who these students are, to go back to the question itself so that you can review that question with that group of students, and also having the ability to filter this data across multiple class periods or across other teachers that are giving the same assessment. When we talk about self-reflection, self-evaluation, are the other teachers on my team having the same problem with their kids putting B on number 2, let's take a look across all the teachers in my school. The trend is different. Clearly, the other teachers in the grade level are not having that problem. What are they doing differently? And that's where I want to really try to have a conversation with those teachers. Noelle, you ran PLC meetings. Talk to us about how important this data is.
I think the biggest thing here is that self-evaluation piece from the ITS model is really focusing not on evaluation and teacher evaluation and kind of that high stakes piece, but instead really truly being able to look at my data from a perspective of, I want to get better at the teaching and learning that's happening in my classroom. And so I want to talk to the teachers who maybe had better results with this particular question or this particular piece so that I can really truly start to see, okay, what do I need to do to get my students to a place that I'm more comfortable with as far as their standards level mastery?
Yep, exactly. And along those lines, I mean, this is the report you can view for the whole assessment. And Noelle, your point there about this is not for teacher evaluation purposes. This is for self-evaluation, self-reflection, and for a collaborative team that is working together in that true sense and that true spirit of collaboration and helpfulness. This is where those teachers can use that data to have a meaningful conversation so that I can uncover some of the strategies that Mr. Davis is using in his classroom when he taught and assessed that same standard, given a common assessment and a common set of questions.
Well, and sometimes if you can regroup your students as well, this might be the perfect opportunity to say, okay, Mr. Seaman, in this particular example, we want you to go ahead and do an enrichment activity with our students who have already mastered this particular concept, where we may have Mr. Davis or Miss Taylor run the group of the students that are really truly in remediation of this concept, because they may be able to reach those students in a different way than they, got in the regular classroom in the tier 1 instruction.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always about using that data. We also want to help students use data. And in that sense, students can view their own mastery data in MasteryConnect as well. And along those lines, I'm going to click on an individual student here. This is actually the teacher view of this, but for those who are familiar, that students can access a student portal. If you're using Canvas, students can access this view right inside of Canvas. For those who are not familiar, or even if you are, I think it helps to talk through this again. I mean, what you're seeing here in the individual student report is that view, not of how many assignments have been turned in, how many points have been earned. This is a view as to, on the actual standards, based on what the standard is and what it's describing, what does the student know and what can they do, or what are the specific standards this student needs help on. And when a student starts to view and see the data this way, it can really kind of change the game. Instead of students kind of playing this game of, I got to earn a bunch of points, now they're really thinking, hey, this is a transparent view of what I actually know and can do and where I need to improve. From this page, from the teacher view of this page, this is another one of our enhanced features, the document uploader, a place where you can attach and add student files to this. So if you have additional documentation outside of just student mastery of these standards, and you need to include that and attach that, you can do so here by uploading any sort of Word doc or PDF. Maybe it's an IEP document. Maybe it's their test scores from that particular subject area from the end of last year, and you want to have that housed in here, so you can always go back to that and refer to that. Maybe it's a behavior plan, something like that. Any of these documents you have the ability to upload and attach to get the complete picture really on where the student is. And along those lines, I think this offers a good transition to our final piece, which is kind of the enhanced MasteryConnect Canvas integration. And the reason I think it's a good transition is because I jumped onto this page by talking about how students can access this right inside of Canvas, where you don't want students to have to go somewhere else to see their data. They live in Canvas, they go to their Mastery tab, they can see exactly how they're doing in MasteryConnect. And that's what we've really worked hard on our product team has worked hard on to try and emphasize over this summer, enhanced features that will make this easier, in particular for teachers. For those teachers who are using MasteryConnect and have used MasteryConnect in the past, there's always sort of been this loose association between your tracker and your Canvas course. And you got to go through a few extra steps to take those assessments from MasteryConnect and get them into your Canvas course so the student can take them, and then the data flows into both places. Well, those additional steps are no more.
And before, one other thing is that you could only use some types of MasteryConnect assessments in Canvas. That also is no longer the case. So those are two really exciting pieces. So I'm going to let James show you the rest.
Yeah, and really, I'm just right to the point. The idea that within your course, instead of sort of having this tracker that sits over there and says, well, this is loosely tied because it's the same students, you would actually, within your Canvas course, create your tracker or link your tracker directly. So you've already created a tracker, great, link to that Canvas course. If you haven't, even better, you create the tracker right from here using that same set of students. And if you teach, again, multiple sections of the same course, you don't have to create multiple trackers. It pulls all the students in from that course. And then, of course, we looked at the filtering view of the tracker where we can filter that by the particular section. So this is where you can link your tracker directly to your Canvas course. Doing that provides some significant benefit because what it means is that when you are in your tracker and you are using all of the tools in MasteryConnect to create assessments, and for those who are not as familiar with MasteryConnect, MasteryConnect offers some significant advantages for creating assessments. It offers a community of hundreds of thousands of shared assessments. It also offers item banks and the ability to pull in hundreds of thousands of pre-built vetted questions, as well as the ability to build dozens of your own types of questions. You build those standard aligned assessments in MasteryConnect, then you don't have to do anything to get them into Canvas because your tracker was already generated from that Canvas course. The assessment automatically shows up as an unpublished assignment in your Canvas course. All you've got to do is go in there and publish it. So then when the student comes in, the student automatically will see that assessment waiting for them right there. The student doesn't know or care that you built the assessment using the tools in MasteryConnect. They know they live inside of Canvas. This gives you the ability to use the MasteryConnect tools in Canvas in a truly seamless manner as a teacher because your tracker lives as part of that course. And that means everything you put in that tracker can become part of that course, including, as Noelle mentioned, any of those performance-based assessments when you're coming into MasteryConnect and you want to do a raw score or you want to do a rubric-based assessment in MasteryConnect, maybe something like this, where you're utilizing the performance grader and you want to evaluate students in this manner. This data or your raw score data can automatically go into your Canvas gradebook as well because, again, this tracker is now tied to the Canvas course.
And for anyone that's using Canvas, the cool thing is that automatically, when it's connected, it will automatically open within SpeedGrader, and you'll be able to use the SpeedGrader library of comments that was just released for SpeedGrader as well. So all the things to make everyone happy.
Yeah, it's awesome. And sort of to close the loop on this, let's jump back over here to the student. Here's Destiny. She's taking this assessment quickly. She's in Canvas. She never leaves Canvas when she does that. Her data goes here into the Canvas gradebook. She got 20%. She also gets her mastery level. You heard that beep or that pop. That was her score popping here into MasteryConnect. So as a teacher, again, in real time, I have that data. I can utilize all those tools we talked about a few moments ago. But jumping back to the student side, when the student hits next, again, if you're using mastery paths in Canvas, the content that the student sees next can be dictated by how they did on that assessment. So you are creating these personalized learning pathways that are sort of governed by how the student does in that particular assessment. And that is what ultimately frees me up to work with this group, because there's not 3 of me or 4 of me based on whatever levels of mastery I'm using. This connection between MasteryConnect and Canvas, and really I think the way to think of it is that MasteryConnect is now just an extension of Canvas. It's one arm, it's one piece of Canvas. It is your formative assessment and standards-based data tracking component that you use in Canvas. And that really allows you to use this data while the student can then, working at their own pace, but based on where they are in their zone of proximal development, get the content that is appropriate and right for them. So really exciting stuff that we have developed, or I shouldn't say we, that Noelle, your team, the product team has developed, and I just get to kind of come on here and talk to you about. So we've seen that in action. We definitely want to say thanks for joining us. We've got our blog here in the community that you can check out. Noelle, anything you want to say about the blog? Any finishing words here?
No, just that this is where you'll get all the most updated information about everything that's being released with MasteryConnect or any new enhancements, anything like that. So it's a great place to go ahead and bookmark. And I think Eddie's going to help us by kind of putting out that link to the blog. But it's been a pleasure today. And if you need any more information on any of these things, a great resource is your CSM or your regional sales team to provide you with a more in-depth demo of what MasteryConnect can do.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. We went ahead and put that link in the comment and chat sections of all of our social media channels. We can't appreciate Noelle and James enough for coming on today and joining us on the live stream. If you have any questions, please reach out for those in-depth conversations. Another great place to do that might be the Panda Pros. If you want to learn more about MasteryConnect and Canvas and the integration there as well. Another shameless plug for a great program that we're offering here through Canvas. Lots of comments coming in from Ray on YouTube. That looks really cool. Tons of good stuff. Obviously, get a hold of your CSM, get a hold of your district technology person, whatever you may need to do to make sure MasteryConnect is a part of your plans this fall. Thank you guys so much again for joining us. We will be back next week.